Soul Streaming Entry 18. Illusion after illusion after illusion. A living, breathing, audio, and written experience by Sim. There are moments when I'm speaking, when I can feel that what's coming through me is deeper than just a thought. It's like information is being accessed in real time. Not something I'm trying to figure out, but something I'm remembering. Something that's already within me that's becoming available as I allow myself to be open to it. And that's what blows my mind the most. Because it's not about learning something new. It's about coming into awareness of what I already know and allowing it to move through me in a way that I can now embody as wisdom. And that's how I know something deeper is shifting. Because on the outside, nothing has really changed. I'm still here, still living my life in a way that may look the same to anyone observing it, but internally, everything is different. It feels like every time I allow myself to access a new layer of understanding, my lenses change. Not gradually, but instantly. And once I see something from that lens, I can't unsee it. I'm aware enough to know this is not a conversation for everyone. Not because anyone is less than, but because you have to be open enough to even hear what I'm saying. Because what I'm realizing now is that I don't have to choose. That used to confuse me because I would resonate with so many things: spiritual tools, perspectives, ways of being, and I thought I had to pick one. Like, which one are you? But now, that question doesn't even make sense to me anymore. Because why would I limit myself in my own reality? Why would I choose one identity when I can experience all of them or none of them? And that's why identifying as a unicorn was the only thing that ever made sense to me. Because to me, a unicorn is not just magical, it's free, free to become, free to shift, free to create. And I think that's what I had been trying to understand all along. Because there was a point where I did identify with different spiritual labels. I resonated with being a shaman, a light worker, a witch, a spiritual doula, and none of those were wrong. Each one reflected a part of me, a way that I show up, a way that I connect, a way that I hold space. But none of them fully encompass me. And I realized I didn't want to choose just one. I didn't want to limit myself to one expression, one role, one identity, when I can feel that I was all of it and more. That's when unicorn landed differently for me. Because to me, unicorns are magical beings that can move between worlds, between roles, between expressions. They don't have to stay one thing. They become what's needed, what's called, what's aligned in the moment. And that's how I experience myself. In one moment, I can resonate with something deeply, and in the next moment, I can release it. And neither version of me is wrong. There is no punishment for changing, there is no penalty for evolving, there is no rule that says I have to stay the same. Those rules were learned, inherited, and adopted. But when I really look at it, there are no real rules in the way we were taught. Yes, in this physical world, things have structure. But beyond that, everything is open. Everything is available. You just have to choose. Not in a way where you're trying to figure everything out all at once, but in the present moment. Choosing what feels aligned for you right now. Choosing what you want to experience right now. And allowing that to be enough without feeling like you have to make it permanent. Illusion after illusion. And when I really sit with where I am right now, I can see more clearly that it didn't start here. Before I ever thought about consciousness, before I ever had language or even a framework for any of this, I was just doing what I was taught, what most of us are taught, following a model that's been passed down, reinforced, and normalized in so many different ways, from our parents, from school, from society as a whole. Go to school, get the degree, get the job, build a life that makes sense, the right way, the secure way. the way that's supposed to lead to fulfillment. And when you're in it, you don't really question it because it's all you know. It's the model most of us were born into. The one that teaches you that if you follow the steps correctly, you'll eventually arrive at a life that feels good. So, somewhere in that, I thought fulfillment would come with it. Like if I just followed the steps the way they were laid out for me, I would feel it. But I didn't. And that was the part that I couldn't ignore because everything around me said this should be enough, but it wasn't. I couldn't explain it at the time because on paper, everything looked like it was supposed to. So I thought maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe I just needed to create my own. And that's when I stepped into entrepreneurship because I was tired. Tired of working in environments that didn't consider me, didn't consider how I felt, didn't consider how I naturally create, didn't consider how I move through life. And without even fully understanding it at the time, I knew I wasn't meant to operate in a traditional 9 to 5. Later on, I would learn that as a projector, that way of working was never designed for me in the first place. So entrepreneurship felt like the answer: freedom, flexibility, the ability to do things my way. And for a while, it did feel better. I was making money, I was creating, I was doing something that felt more aligned than what I had left behind. But if I'm being honest, it still didn't feel like me. Because even though I had changed the environment, I hadn't changed the lens I was operating from. I was still carrying the same weight, the same expectations, the same pressure to produce, the same underlying beliefs about what it meant to be successful. So even in entrepreneurship, I found myself recreating the same feeling, just in a different form. And that's when I had to be real with myself because I could see that money was coming in, but I wasn't fulfilled. And that mattered more to me. That's what pushed me deeper, not into another business idea, not into trying to figure out the next thing to build, but into myself. I made a conscious decision to stop focusing on producing just so I could make a living. And instead, I chose to focus on healing full time because I realized that as long as I was still carrying the weight of old beliefs, old expectations, old conditioning, anything I created would still be filtered through that. And I didn't want to keep building from that place. I wanted a clean slate. And in that space, I started to see something I hadn't fully acknowledged before. My needs were already being taken care of, which meant I didn't have to keep producing just to survive. I could finally allow myself to pause, to focus on me, to focus on healing, to just be present with where I was without feeling like I needed to create something in order to sustain myself. And I'm not going to lie, that way of being felt unfamiliar to my nervous system at first. Not wrong, just different. Because I had been so used to moving from a place of survival, of doing, of constantly trying to maintain something. So allowing myself to just be, to trust, to not force, it felt like something my body had to learn. But the more I sat in it, the more I allowed myself to stay there without rushing out of it. My nervous system started to relax in a way I hadn't experienced before. It finally felt safe, not because everything around me changed, but because I was no longer operating from survival. And that's when I realized how deep this illusion goes. Because one of the biggest illusions we carry is believing that we always have to be in survival mode to be secure, that we have to keep repeating what we've been taught instead of listening to what actually feels good to us, what actually feels aligned for us. But once that illusion starts to break, your body knows, and everything begins to shift from there. Choosing the lens. Then I went deeper into myself, into my beliefs, into everything I had been taught to accept without question. I started dismantling things: societal beliefs, limiting beliefs, generational patterns, and that part felt good. It felt like I was finally getting somewhere, like I was peeling back layers that were never really mine to begin with. But what I started to notice during this time was how quickly my level of consciousness was rising. You don't always recognize it in some big dramatic way. You recognize it in how you respond. and how you don't react the same way anymore, and how things that once triggered you don't hit the same, and how you can see something for what it is without getting pulled into it. And that's when I started to really understand something. Everything outside of me being a soul is a fucking illusion. Not fake, not meaningless, but something I can choose how I interact with. Something I can decide how much weight I give. Because in this experience of being human, we're constantly choosing what we believe, choosing what we align with, choosing what we attach ourselves to, not because we need those things to exist, but because they shape our experience. And that's when it shifted for me. I don't need any of these systems, but I can choose them. I can choose what expands me, what supports me, what helps me move forward in the moment I'm in, without feeling like I have to stay there, without defining myself by it, without adding weight to it, and without discrediting any other part. Because it was never about finding the one thing that's right. It was about allowing myself to move freely beyond the role of spirituality. And that's when I went deeper into spirituality. And I'm not even going to lie, that part felt real in a way I didn't question. It felt like I had tapped into something that aligned with me on a deeper level. For a moment, I really thought, this is it. Like I had finally found something that felt less like discovering something new and more like remembering something I already knew. But the longer I sat in it, the more I started to notice something. There wasn't just one way, and every path felt real to the person living it. And that's when it hit me. Spirituality is also an identity, a role, a lens, something you can attach yourself to. And when I realized that spirituality could also become something I identified with, something I could attach myself to the same way I had with everything else before, I had to pause because it made me look at it differently. Not in a way that took away from what it gave me, but in a way that made me question where I was placing it in my life. Because if I had moved through all of these different paths and each one only held me for a season, then where did that leave me now? If I didn't fully resonate with the matrix and I no longer felt defined by entrepreneurship and even spirituality didn't encompass everything that I am, then what is it? Where do I go from here? And I had to sit with that without rushing to find another answer. The unbound state. And what I realized is that my belief system around consciousness is simple. It's what makes me feel fulfilled. It's what allows me to live fully in authenticity, in discovery, in exploration, without worrying about how I'm perceived or what came before me. Because at the end of the day, we're all just specks of consciousness, having our own experience. And once I really let that land, I didn't feel the need to hold on to anything anymore. I don't feel bound to a belief, an identity, or even a version of myself. And that doesn't feel scary anymore. It feels freeing. I allow myself to evolve in real time, not disconnected, not detached, just free to choose what I am becoming in every single moment. Presence between it all. And what I'm coming to understand through all of this is that in between every illusion, there is only presence, not the identity, not the label, just this moment. And in this moment, you can only ever choose one thing, not everything at once, just one. And then the next moment comes and you get to choose again. And I think that's where we create so much pressure because we feel like we have to be everything all at once. But shit, we don't. We don't have to be anything. And maybe that's what unsettles people the most. Why does not being anything feel so uncomfortable? For me, allowing myself to move through life this way has given me a different kind of freedom. Living the illusion I choose. Life really is just illusion after illusion after illusion. But every illusion you choose carries a different frequency. And now that my consciousness has shifted once again, I can see that everything I've experienced has served me. From the matrix to entrepreneurship to spirituality to now. Each one gave me something. Each one revealed something. But none of them were meant to define me. Because now, no matter what lens I choose to look through, no matter what illusion I choose to engage with, it all brings me back to one thing: getting to know myself. Not the version of me that was taught, not the version of me that was conditioned, but the version of me that I uncover when I'm willing to question everything I thought I knew. Because how can you really know who you are if you never question what you've been taught? If you never question what you've accepted as truth? I used to think I knew who I was, but I only knew the version of me that had been shaped by everything outside of me. Now I get to know myself differently. I get to look at all parts of me without judgment, without needing to hold on to everything, and decide what actually aligns with me, what stays, what goes, what feels true for me in this moment, and what no longer serves me. And that's what makes this version of my life feel so real, because I'm not trying to fit into anything. I'm allowing myself to experience everything while staying rooted in myself, living as a nomad, writing my soul streaming journal book, creating as I go, letting life meet me where I am, instead of trying to force myself into what I think it should look like. It doesn't require anything more from me. And I love that because I feel lighter and at the same time, more grounded than I ever have. So when people ask me, what do you do? The answer isn't something I can box into one title. I get to know me on every level that I'm willing to explore. And that in itself is a lifelong experience. My legacy thread: life will offer you version after version of truth, and each one will feel real while you're in it until it doesn't. And that doesn't mean you were wrong. It means you allowed yourself to experience life through a different lens. There is no final identity. There is only you, choosing again and again. And the more you release what no longer fits, the lighter you become. You are not here to become one thing. You are here to experience many things without losing yourself in any of them. A whisper for you: you don't have to hold on to every illusion you encounter, even the ones that once felt like truth. You're allowed to move through them. You're allowed to outgrow them. You're allowed to choose differently as your awareness shifts. You're meant to move, to shift, to evolve, not stay fixed in one version of yourself. And if you find yourself in a space where nothing feels defined, that doesn't mean you're lost. It might actually mean you're finally seeing clearly. Here are your journal prompts for this week's entry. Answer them honestly. Number 1, where in my life am I holding on to something that no longer aligns with who I am right now? Number 2, what does fulfillment actually feel like to me beyond what I've been taught? Number 3, which illusion am I currently choosing? And does it expand me or limit me? Number 4, how has my life already shown me that I am supported, even when it didn't look the way I expected? Number 5, if I allowed myself to choose again in this moment, what would feel most aligned for me right now? Thank you for witnessing this soul stream. Replay it or reread it whenever you need to come back home to yourself. Until next time, stay soft, stay true, and keep streaming your soul your way. Love, Sim.